Julie. I will do roll call, and I'm here. Julie, you're here. As I was leaving my office, I heard something about Jemiah.
He won't be here
What?
today.
Okay. Alyssa had a conflicting meeting. Val Switzler.
Oh, right here. I just walked in. No.
Yay, just in time. Diane Tiemann. Michael Cherry. Angela Fasana. Jennifer Jackson.
Present.
Melissa Montero. Becky Cantrell. Marcia Frost. Jory Spencer. Jamie Crane. Jesse Jackson. Jennifer Reed.
Present.
We do not have quorum. Is it 5 or 6?
5.
Oh, then we have quorum.
Great. Well, thank you for a roll call. Thanks for the blessing, Julie. So we have a pretty full agenda for the day. So we are going to start with our guests. So although they're regularly attending, Jennifer Reed from Cow Creek, the education director, is going to talk about their early childhood programs. And then we're going to have Northwest Native Chamber talk about childcare infrastructure funds. We have Michael is back along with Amber to talk about the second round. And then for the Tribal Early Learning Plan and Fund, we have some legislative updates, and we're going to go over the statement of work. And then we've got some tribal discussion time, and we'll close for the day. So before we dive in, any questions?
Well, I just was worried about when I have to leave of not having quorum, but we do have quorum. The list that I have doesn't have Malia on it, but we do have a previous email from Diane that says Malia will be, and Malia is on. So we will maintain quorum when I have to step out.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I know that Diane had mentioned Malia will be here on her behalf. So glad that that is able to work. And even when you're gone, that we'll still have quorum. And Malia, I hope everything is going okay with the recent flooding out in the area. So just to, as a reminder, and for those of you who might have not been here at the last TAC meeting, there was interest expressed by the committee to have the tribes, different tribes, share about their early childhood programs to help with learning different strategies and being able to implement those in your programs, especially as we gear up for implementing the Tribal Early Learning Plan. And so graciously, Jen has volunteered. So I will pass it over to Jen Reed.
Dawook, thank you so much. I have a very short PowerPoint if I'm able to share. Let's see. Oh, yes, thank you. Looks like I can share. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
So yes, my name is Jen Reed. I'm in month 9, I think, as the education director here at the Cow Creek Band of Umpqua Tribe of Indians, and happy to speak a little bit about our early childhood education programs. So you're probably familiar with our preschool. It's called YAMISA, which is the Degelma translation is they dream. We have one preschool classroom serving 15 3 to 5-year-olds, and that's funded by Preschool Promise and ECF, and hopefully the Tribal Early Learning Plan and Fund. So looking forward to that. We use the creative curriculum and integrate a lot of different partnerships, both within the tribal government and community organizations, to supplement the creative curriculum studies. So we, this spring, have been welcoming in Umpqua Valley Farm to Table. For gardening, our dietitian and healthy living team from Cow Creek Health and Wellness to talk about, food, cooking demonstrations as part of the exercise study and creative curriculum. And then the water study, which is at the end, we're working towards with our fisheries team in the Natural Resources Division. We're doing the Fish to Fry program, where we have an aquarium set up in the classroom. So here are just a few photos of the kids at play in the classroom. We have one lead teacher, one lead teacher, one regular teacher, a teacher's assistant, and then a part-time teacher's aide. So it brings our teacher to student ratio down very low, which is a draw for a lot of parents. Here's an interior view of the classroom, wide open, spacious, set up for station rotations, and then the door to the back leads to the outdoor playground. A couple shots of our playground. Really proud of it. It's also a shared space. UMESA is housed in the top floor of our Tribal Community Center located in Myrtle Creek. And then the bottom floor is our Expanding Horizons Youth Center, which serves grades 3 to 12. So we do have some UMESA graduates who eventually have enrolled in our Expanding Horizons Youth Center after school program. So here is a better view of the exterior playground. There's also a language and culture component. So we have two Dekelma language teachers funded by the Grow Your Own grant. And here is just a shot of one of the language lessons happening. I believe they're talking about some nature terms here and working towards making soap out of materials that they have gathered. Thank you so much to Amber and to Michael. They have been such a pleasure to work with and an amazing, robust set of resources that they're able to support us with as we apply for the Child Care Infrastructure Fund. And so here is an exterior view of the site that we have dreamed of developing, that the Tribal Board has dreamed of developing. It's located in downtown Roseburg, so about 25 minutes north of Myrtle Creek. Currently being used as a tribal pantry, but the pantry takes up only about 1/3 of the building and the rest, the 2/3, sits unused and underutilized. That's an exterior view. It looks small from the outside. I was really surprised when I did a walkthrough. It's actually quite spacious inside, and we're hoping to fit one infant toddler room for 0 to 3, and then a UMESA North, so to speak, for a second preschool classroom. To the right is just an exterior view of the playground, again, very spacious and up against the river. That's a beautiful location. Here's a view of that tribal pantry where it's co-located in the same space. And we're really excited about the potential of this being another tribal community center, a hub for tribal members to not only take their children for childcare and preschool, but also to take advantage of the tribal pantry. So we really see this as a whole child, whole family project and approach. One of our other big partners is our local South Central Early Learning Hub. We sometimes receive funds from them, and we were able this past spring to receive a little set aside here where we try to use these opportunities to serve as much as possible all tribal members across the country. So we were able to work with them and a publisher called Orca Publishing located in Canada, although it's not Native owned, all Native authors, Native themed titles, all Native editors. It was really nice to work with them and to select a book bundle of 5 titles that kind of touch on the developmental milestones that kids are working on within the 0 to 5 range. And so we were able to mail home one of these book bundles to every tribal member ages 0 to 5 across the country. Also note that we recently received some funds from Pacific Source, the coordinated care organization serving Lane County, and we're happy to receive those funds so that we can do our second annual Yamisa Summer School program. So with the Tribal Early Learning Plan and Fund coming into play, we'll be able to wrap the school year calendar activities and summer into one fund. So that is exciting too. Also to mention that our language program, although most of the activities serve adults like our virtual, Zoom classes, we also do have in-person family classes for kids. And our Digelma primers, which I'm sure you've seen, these really beautiful hardcover books that are mailed to every newborn enrolled in the tribe, and we've shared them with local libraries, schools, and integrated them into all of our language classes and activities. So, that's it for me. If anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Jen. You're incredible.
Thank you.
Was Orca pretty easy to work with? They have a wonderful variety of native high-low books. And I encourage, and when we were using some of our funds to purchase books for local schools and Title VI programs, high-low books are so important to incorporate, and schools don't utilize them enough. And Orca has quite a variety of them. Were they easy to set up an account and work with, being out of the country?
They were so easy to work with, super responsive, and also so accommodating. I know that we're all challenged by staff capacity, and when you're thinking about giving 5 books to every tribal member 0 to 5, we don't have any space to receive inventory like that. And so they were so accommodating working with us. I just got permission from our enrollment department to share the names and addresses of those tribal members, shared them through, secure transfer, data transfer, and they were able to work with their shipper to distribute all those books so that neither us as the tribe or the South Central Early Learning Hub had to receive any inventory. They did it all, and we really appreciated that.
That's really good to know.
Jen, do you know how many you have?
0 to 5?
Yeah,
193.
that's wonderful. Oh, I'm so happy for you. I bet their families are so thankful,
Yeah, many of them, some of them also work in ECE themselves, the parents. And so we had a number of parents who also called saying, can I get an extra bundle? Because I'm taking it to my school site. So that was really exciting to see.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was lovely. I really appreciate you being willing to volunteer and that you put that presentation together. The pictures were wonderful. That playground is beautiful, and the future vision for the area you're planning on for Roseburg is really exciting. I'm curious, and maybe other tribes might be wondering this as well, but have you always worked with the local CCO and the Coordinated Care Organization? I think that's what that stands for, and Early Learning Hub, or was there, did you have to reach out to them initially to start collaborating, or did they reach out to you?
The Early Learning Hub is an ongoing partnership from what I understand, but the CCO was a surprise. We were not really understanding why they were trying to get in touch with us, because we thought, well, I looked up the numbers because I thought, are we talking tribal members 0 to 5 living in Lane County? Because that's a really specific, group of people and not that many. So I actually declined the funds because I was like, we don't really have time to receive a grant just to serve this small population. They said, no, we're looking to partner with with tribes whose ancestral territories overlap with Lane County in any way. So I thought, okay, well, if you're saying we can use it for any 0 to 5 activity, it just so happened that the amount they were offering us was the exact amount that we needed to have our summer program. And we had done it last year for the first time to great success. And we were thinking we may not be able to do it again, but it just so happened. So yeah, it was just a surprise to receive an offer from them. They're the one who reached out to us.
That is really exciting. Do you happen to know what kind of like initiative that was for, or what kind of funding stream?
Quality Pool Fund. Yeah, that was the title.
Okay.
And they actually have someone doing tribal relations for the CCO. I can look up that person's name and number if anyone were interested in reaching out to them.
Maybe it's something that Dana could put in an email to all of us.
Perfect, I can do that.
Yeah, definitely. Feel free to send that to me, Jen, and then I'll share it out either in the recap email after this meeting, or it can go out following, depending on the timeframes. Any other questions for Jen? Anything else before we go to our next topic?
I just want to say thank you for sharing that critical information and how it worked out, because that's recorded now. And that's something that can be shared out across all 9 tribes. So I don't know if everybody's going to jump on it or not, but you've done some good foundation work that could help all of us. I humbly thank you.
I'll pop my number and email into the chat. Happy to talk more, set up a time to talk virtually. Anyone interested in talking about BCE.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. And if anyone else is interested in presenting for the May or June TAC meetings, definitely let me know. I have Val on the list for one of those 2, but I don't know yet. But yeah, if you'd like to present as well, let me know. And so yeah, we can move on to our next guests, which are the Northwest Native Chamber technical assistance providers for the Child Care Infrastructure Funds. So Amber and Mike Hell are here.
Thanks.
Feel
Jen,
free to share your screen.
there was a picture of your food pantry and I was like, wow, look at all of that beef and coffee. Like that is a dream pantry. It was really beautiful. And so just to have that insight and see that, it was like really special. So and we love working with you as well. So I will do some quick intros and then I'll share my screen and I'll try to keep it tight. My name's Amber Feist. I'm an enrolled Coquel. I'm also a Coos and Sayusla descendant. I serve as the programs director here at the Northwest Native Chamber. I live in Tualatin. Our offices are kind of based out of Portland, but we've been doing lots of travel throughout the state recently. And then I'll hand it over to Michael to introduce herself as well.
Yeah, good evening, or excuse me, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Johnson. I am the Oregon Resource Navigator here at the Northwest Native Chamber. I am an enrolled member of the Nez Perce tribe, but I also have Yakima and Umatilla descendancy. So great to hold space with you all.
All right, well, here we are, spring 2025. I think this is our 3rd time here at the TAC meetings. So there's going to be a little bit that is repeated. I wanted to make sure if there was anybody new or hadn't seen that the presentation that we send out included some of that information. But yes, we are funded through a contract with the Department of Early Learning and Care to provide technical assistance specifically to CCIF. I think as I can kind of get in, that can look kind of broad and different for each tribe that we've been working with. Just some context on the program. There was $50 million allocated in 2023. This is really focusing on infrastructure, so new constructions, repairs, retrofit, also property acquisition. Not, kind of covering some of those indirect or overhead costs or staff time or curriculum or rent or some of these other, items that we know are really big needs in the childcare space, but this fund was really specifically targeted for infrastructure. The application timeline, so open March 26th, it closes April 30th. So that is basically tomorrow. You know, we really wanted to see a longer timeline, and I'll talk a little bit about that, but I think just for the tribes that are in this room who we've been working with, they're kind of aware of round 2, there will be a round 3. And, you know, some tribes are really like considering what that decision making looks like for them. Award decisions will be in June 2025. That means that we probably won't see contracts executed until September or even October potentially of 2025, and funding must be spent by May of 2027. One of the big updates this round is that they are not doing any planning projects, so those will not be funded or available for this round 2. However, certain components of what would have been included in your planning project might be able to be wrapped up into a minor or major renovation application, things like design build and, you know, some of those RFP pieces that are required for a construction project. So we are looking at similar prioritization this round as what's coming through from Business Oregon. There obviously still a focus on culturally specific, expanding or creating new childcare slots, expanding or offering infant and toddler care, operating within a desert, extended hour, accepting subsidies, and then operating full day, 6+ hours a day and full year. I think what we've really been describing to tribes is that, you know, you're probably not going to hit every single one of these prioritizations. And because you are competing, this is a grant application or a contract application for these funds. What we really want to do here at the Chamber is work with tribes to really identify where we can build the most opportunity for high scores and not worry too much about, you know, stepping outside of what it is that the tribe envisions and really wants to do, but like honing in on where can we make sure that we have those extra scoring opportunities so we have the most competitive application that we can have. This is just a little bit again on round 1. So, you know, the funding did show up in 29 counties. There was Wheeler and Baker had no applications at all. There were 4 tribes that received awards. 4 out of 5 tribal applicants were awarded, 10 million total. And you can kind of see how that was distributed between planning and minor renovations, major and property. So we know round 2 won't include any of those planning projects. And so we expect to kind of see more in that minor and major renovation area. I think, Michael, I'm going to, like, I'm always calling on her for like the most specific random questions, but Michael, am I right? Is like property acquisition doesn't have a ton of, like they don't prioritize that in any way?
No, not necessarily. I think with property acquisition, in terms of like last round, we've seen, I think, a majority of funds awarded. I think it was like 72%. I could be wrong on that total percentage, but that was for minor renovation. And like, then I think it went major renovation. So yeah, just to clarify there.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is I think it's not a high prioritization. And, you know, I think we are trying to see majority of these funds being implemented into like making spaces that exist already, like investing into spaces that exist already and have that longevity of service. So we've, as I said, we've been kind of getting around. So we've visited Cow Creek, Coquel, CT Clusie. Will be in Umatilla tomorrow. You know, we are in contact. We've started contact or have had folks join our webinar from Grand Ronde, Warm Springs, Siletz, Burns Paiute, and you know, we're engaging with Klamath. I think what we're really learning in this time and space is that each tribe is in a different place. They have different programs, they have different priorities, their needs are really different, and CCIF is kind of a unique proposition, especially for tribes who, you know, maybe had something on the back burner, maybe already had something that was going on, but, you know, as an investment, we know that childcare is really challenging to, you know, not only manage and maintain, but also just kind of understanding that for tribes and tribal communities, it isn't always a business proposition. So just the way that CCIF has been created and administered by Business Oregon, which is an economic development organization, there's just been, you know, some unique challenges with that. And I'm like, is challenges my next slide? Oh, we're also working with small businesses and also community-based programs. So there are some nonprofits that we're serving. There are some individual LLCs that we're serving. And so I always want to put a plug that if there is somebody in your tribal community who runs their own childcare, who also is curious about this opportunity, we're also working with them as well. So, you know, we've just seen a lot of delays, frankly, with getting contracts executed. I think we had hoped that, you know, people would be able to apply to round one for planning and then be able to move through their planning grant and be ready by April to apply for round two. And we still have contracts that are not executed or just recently within the last few weeks got executed from round one. So that's been a struggle. The application timeline being 30 days this time around, especially for tribal communities, is a major barrier. Being able to run it through the, you know, tribe's internal processes, have it approved, you know, move forward through council or, you know, a granting committee, that it just takes time, and you have to plan and you have to make sure that you have all of the right resources in place to be able to submit a competitive application. You know, I think there's also, you know, the strict planning project grant completion requirement. So if you do have a project grant, you cannot apply for round two until you've fully expended and fully closed out that round one application. I think that's going to be the case for any future rounds. So for anybody who's applying in round two and is awarded, and then maybe something else in round three pops up, you know, that grant has to be completely expended before we can kind of talk about future rounds. And you know, I just acknowledge, I think for us in first round, we were really busy standing up the application process and period. And I feel like the word didn't quite get out to the tribes in the one-to-one way, individual contact and engagement that we really would have liked to seen. And so we want to own that accountability, and we're really working on it here in round two and round three to make sure, you know, that we're meeting with tribes, that we're talking to each tribe, that we are, you know, getting really clear about the requirements and the deadlines, and that we are, you know, doing the work of really making sure that, you know, tribes have an opportunity to not only hear about the grant, but more importantly, what some of the challenges and barriers and struggles that they might, you know, kind of experience as they're trying to access that. You know, we're talking a lot about, you know, rural, you know, childcare deserts, really thinking about tribes as economic development hubs for those rural communities, and understanding that childcare isn't, you know, always a business for many tribes, that they actually fund childcare with general funds in a lot of ways so that they can ensure their tribal citizens have, you know, quality access and at no cost access. I never use the word free because nothing's free, but that, you know, there's a low barrier to entry for their childcare programs. You know, things just take a little bit longer, and, you know, there's a lot of historical context in terms of, you know, not having the funding to build for like future growth, and really seeing what those capacity gaps look like for tribes that have centers, but, you know, have a lot of children, or a lot of need, or also alternatively, they run tribal enterprises that have a lot of employees who also need access to quality childcare. I'm trying to keep it going really quick, but I will stop for questions, I promise. So, you know, we're really looking at building that capacity, making sure that, you know, tribes and the businesses we're working with have access to grant writers if they need to talk to, an attorney, if there are other considerations or assistance that they need in terms of how they present it to council. There's been a little bit of business planning, and we have a lot of those resources that are funded through DELC. So DELC was really generous in how we wanted to approach this to ensure that, if there was a need that a tribe had, we would be able to tap in and leverage some of we call them professional service providers, to be able to assist. And so there's a whole host and list of those types of organizations and businesses to work with tribes, but a lot of the work has been just kind of getting more hands involved so that we can help move it forward. We're advocating weekly with Business Oregon around really simplifying application processes, really ensuring that it makes sense for tribes as they're filling it out, that there isn't, tribes aren't an afterthought, that they really are able to kind of be, that those application processes are defined with them in mind. Looking ahead and our future goals, things that we are continually talking about is talking about, tribal set aside, really, strengthening that tribal engagement in facilities, and specifically, our tribal communities that lack facilities, and also really sustaining that technical assistance. Here's just kind of a list of some of the things that we are helping with, but I think the more important thing that I wanted to point out is that we do have some webinars. Of course, this one happened today, but we do have another one tomorrow on round 2 application support. We've got some other, data-driven decision-making, grant writing, building a marketing plan, accessing public funding, long-term capacity building, and then, also, bridging the gap between agencies and tribal communities, I think is one that's going to be really interesting because there'll be a lot of intermediaries there as well. And then, here is our email. So cciFsupport@nunac.org. We've got a phone number there, but we always prefer email just because sometimes, you need that immediate support, and we want to be able to make sure we have all the information that we need. I'm a resource, Mikel's a resource, and I think I want to stop because I'm sure there's round 2 questions.
I don't know how to work my hand on the thing.
That works.
You said there was going to be round 3 funding. One of the things that we ran into is the 30-day timeline, and then pulling in. I finally got our planning department to get on board at the beginning of April, but the turnaround time to get bids from contractors and everything like that's, if we stay on it now, we could get them when another round's open, but turning that around in 30 days, that's almost impossible. I mean, just in that field, you can't turn that around unless we was planning before, which, I mean, part of that's on us for not staying with it. But, if there's going to be another round 3, then I will work with our planning department. We actually have a house in Klamath Falls that we were looking at going to use to apply for the major renovation, but getting contractors to go in and take a look and get bids and stuff, that was next to impossible to meet the April 30th deadline. But if there's a round 3, then we could possibly keep moving forward with that idea.
Yeah, Jennifer, we'd love to connect, learn more about your project, and see how we can support. The 30-day, I think so last round was 45 days, and I think we were advocating for 60 days, frankly. And Business Oregon, they just, they were like, it's going to be 30 days. And so, it's a unique scenario where we have this really good engagement here at DELC with the tribes and working with the tribal childcare centers. But then you're right, it's a planning discussion, it's a building, there's lots of other, intergovernmental folks that need to get involved. And it's not going to happen in 30 days. It's going to take time. And I can just speak from the conversations we've been having with many tribes, which is like the 30 days is just untenable.
And Jennifer, I just want to underscore, we guarantee there's a third round because there's 25 million in lottery bonds that haven't been sold yet. So it's not a if or how they break it up, like there will absolutely be more funds. They're being sold this spring.
Sonia, can I ask a question?
Yes, please go ahead, Julie.
I just wanted to say thank you for your presentation, and then I want to double check with you. I'm Julie Seastrom, and I'm tribal council for the Confederated Tribes of the Kusla, Umpqua, and Saisla. And I think that you visited us a couple of weeks ago, but I'm not sure. Is that right?
Yeah, we were down there. I met with your CFO, a lot of folks from education, and also I think your planning lead.
Yeah. So then you got a glimmer of what we're trying to do. We got the plans done, but for whatever reason, we weren't one of the tribes that was chosen for that first round. So I think that, I don't know if everything's done already and resubmitted for this second round or not, but the planning stuff is done. It's just a matter of being able to present it in whatever way so that we can go to, phase 2 and that kind of thing. So whatever help you're giving us, I humbly thank you, and please continue to do so. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think I will just add the context. So we've been working with a few tribes, and Michael, is it 2 out of 2 or 3 that have decided to not move forward in this round because of the timeline?
We currently have two tribes that have confirmed. There was some recent changes where one is going to try and go after it, and then just depending on feedback, if they don't get it, go after round 3. But 2 tribes for sure have confirmed they will not be applying for round 2.
Yeah. And so I always like to set, like when we have information and data like that, so folks can kind of understand, like what's happening this round and what will be happening next round and what we're kind of hearing from community. And Michael, I'm correct that it's timeline.
Correct. It is related into timeline and just going back to that conversation in regards to processes, internal kind of hierarchy of that. And yeah, the timeline is just simply not enough. And I see a hand raised. Hi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Janan Koto. I'm from First Children's Finance. Michael and Amber, I've seen you guys on some of our collaborative meetings, so good to see you again. I'm just curious, you may not know this, but I'm curious if you happen to know, if you guys are aware of why that timeline was reduced in round 2 from 45 to 30 days. And how you're sharing feedback about what you're hearing from tribes about that timeline and the barrier that it represents back to.
Yeah, that first question you had in terms of like Business Oregon's response and the timeline, I don't think I have an exact answer for that. So I'll skip over that and I'll get to, I think kind of the meat of your question, which is, we do have a standing weekly meeting with the staff that are leading this effort. I'm also in close conversation with Business Oregon's tribal liaison. I also want to acknowledge that is like a part-time FTE part of that person's role. I've also been advocating at the Business Oregon tribal gatherings as well, kind of about some of the things that we're seeing. And we have also drafted letters on behalf of tribes in order to kind of elevate it to Business Oregon's leadership. So we can personally write letters, but we really think that it's a lot stronger coming from the tribes themselves. And so we're kind of working on, some comms and communication, and really, I think it's just that interesting power dynamics in terms of, I want to apply for this money and this is a problem, but I also don't want to create a problem when I'm applying for this money. And so we're, we as the chamber are, kind of doing our best to really ensure that people can hear what we're saying and what we're seeing and in our reporting, but we're also working kind of with tribes to be able to like issue letters or issue feedback on their own, because I think that's going to be really key to actually getting Business Oregon's attention. And I also will just add, so Michael is planning and coordinating a tribal roundtable after round 2 closes, and we'll be inviting all of the staff from DELC, and we'll also be bringing in some folks from Business Oregon, and we really want to guide that conversation around year 1 CCIF. What's the experience? What are some of the data that we've been accumulating? What are those stories that we can kind of share without like putting tribes, individual experiences out there, but really just talking about, kind of collectively, what does it look like in Oregon? What are some of those challenges and barriers? And really, I think also just have an opportunity to have tribal liaison staff here from people who have gone through this experience and have some feedback that maybe it feels more comfortable to give verbally than formalized letters from council.
I did want to make a comment. And my comment is that if tribes are selected for during their this round of this funding, they just need to be aware that the cost of construction material is significantly high, especially the cost of steel, and just kind of plan for that, because that will eat into the any awarded funds. And my second comment is that I think we need to work with Business Oregon to really take the tribes, their situation, their needs, and their priorities into consideration, especially when reviewing budgets and timelines. And we went to a G2G today, and we did get some feedback about one tribe's experience during the first round. And I think we need to work with Business Oregon to do a non-competitive funding set aside, rather than having tribes compete for these funds. And these funds are hard to come by, and that would be really truly respecting tribal sovereignty and honoring tribal sovereignty. So that's what I would request, and I would like to reach out to Business Oregon and make something like that happen.
I see TJ's hand up.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I, was just literally at the same government to government, and Paulina is probably talking about the conversation I had with folks today at that meeting. Amber, and you came to Warm Springs last year. My apologies for those of you who don't know me. TJ Foltz, Confederated Tribes Warm Springs Health and Human Services General Manager. We applied for round 1. I think we literally had a day to get our stuff in. Again, so timelines are always a huge factor when it comes to tribes. And in my opinion, I've said this since the first days I've heard about this funding. It boggles my mind that that this doesn't already have tribal set aside dollars set aside for the tribes. It just blows my mind that that's not even a thought for Business Oregon. And I would strongly suggest that you have Business Oregon at these meetings so they can hear these conversations, and not just an afterthought. After round 2, you're saying, now we're going to have Business Oregon come in and talk about year 1 and what worked and what didn't work. Well, obviously it worked for 60 something odd different groups who got the funding, or however many were out of the 700 and something odd that applied. And you got 4 tribes who got money, but if you looked at that list that somebody just had on there, there was $2,195,000, and $2 million went to one tribe. So you're telling me the other 3 tribes all together got a combined $195,000, which is great for them, whether they were in the planning session or not. But if they aren't out of that planning session yet, now you're saying there is no more planning opportunity dollars, and now you're either in it or you're not. You're either getting it or you're not. And For tribes, that's hard for people to turn around in 30 days, just like somebody had just mentioned, I think from Klamath. You got to go out and get bids, you got to go out and get contractors, you got to go out and solicit all this stuff. And there's tribal procurement rules that you have to follow. And if you don't follow those rules and regulations through the tribe, then you're SOL'd, so to speak. So I just had this conversation with Alyssa. Paulina was on the call. Dana was there. I would definitely, no disrespect to Northwest Native Chamber, but again, we're only going to be able to help so much when it comes to back and forth through emails and Zooms, and but if we're not top notch and ready to go in 3 weeks, so to speak, not less than 3 weeks now, well, 3 weeks on the dot actually, for March 30th deadline, tribes are going to be left out in the wind when they could be really utilizing some of these dollars if they were non-competitive set aside. I mean, and the tribes who don't utilize these dollars or choose not to utilize these dollars would have the opportunity for other tribes to say, okay, this tribe didn't want it. Maybe we can give you a little bit more for whatever purposes you have. Just like Paulina mentioned, building materials are going to go through the roof, and I'm going to expect they're even going to get higher with the new tariffs that are coming into place that are starting to be in place. Things are going to cost way more than even a month from now. So you want to hear from tribes, you want to have those tribal letters, and you want to have those opportunities. I really think that you need to get those folks and your folks, whoever's the highest in this room, to be telling the highest in Business Oregon's room that something has to change. Something has to, the tribe shouldn't even be a thought. It should be just, yeah, we have money. Tribes get set aside right away, non-competitive. They get to choose. Simplify your application, because your application is, you got to have a login first of all to create, and then you have to be able to log in, go in, and then you got to go through this tedious application process, which to me is quite frankly ridiculous for tribes to have to jump through hoops to go and compete with 700 other entities that are trying to get dollars. So regardless of where the dollars come from, they're passed through Business Oregon, from my understanding, from state lottery dollars. That government to government relationship that should be had and be seen upon from the state of Oregon and through whoever these pass through dollars go through should be, in my opinion, should be upheld. The OHA, ODHS, some folks already have systems in place for tribal set aside dollars, and I really think that those should be added to this definitely for round 3. It shouldn't even be a question. So again, I appreciate your help, Amber. You met me and Caroline one day, and the next day we were applying, and Michael and I have had some conversations, but it's just frustrating that we have to jump through these hoops. So again, sorry to jump on here and jump on my soapbox, but again, I don't think if people aren't willing to say these things, I'm not, again, I'll tell it. Just if you had the highest Business Oregon person in the room, I would say the same thing. So it doesn't matter to me who it is. It's the fact that tribes shouldn't have to go out and fight for dollars. So especially for something as essential as childcare. Childcare is hard enough, regardless of where you're at in the more rural areas. For us folks in the rural areas, it's even tougher. And if you don't have childcare and the funds to do childcare, then you're again, like I mentioned earlier, you're SOL. The people have to take off work. People have to, parents have to be gone. Your tribe doesn't run as smoothly or efficiently as it could if you had all those dollars in place. You may think it's quite remote, but it has that ripple effect on your whole organization based on childcare.
Yeah.
So I'll stop there before I get more on a rant. So
No,
thank you
TJ, thank you. I think it's important. And I think what I will add, because I know this is a packed agenda and Dana wants to get back to it, but I think what I will add is that after my conversation with you, we really started talking about tribal set-asides, and we had some Business Oregon staff kind of propose like $1 million or $2 million set aside per each round. And I think frankly, what we realized was that they were not equipped to actually start addressing what a tribal set aside could really look like. And so, you know, rather than almost creating a limited pool, we were like, okay, well, in this round, you know, in these next rounds, let's make sure that we have tribes like as prepared as possible for the most competitive application as possible. But I think that you're right, and we need to start talking about this more. And I don't know, I think between Delk, the chamber, the tribes, like I think we could have a really clear communication strategy and how to approach it. But I do want to make sure that there's time for us to, you know, have a strategy around it, because I also know how I know how like programs get tossed at Business Oregon, and then they just really like just push through and execute and get dollars out the door. And I think this calls for a little bit more nuance and finesse. And it's a conversation that I think should be happening in those economic development groups with Business Oregon as well.
And I have reached out to
I
the
have to-
director. Oh, go ahead,
Oh,
Sonia. Please.
Well, I have to get going, but I just wanted to give input in that. Like, so if there is going to be a set aside, then they should be right now working with tribes to get that through. I mean, 30 days, as many of the tribes have mentioned, we just can't do it. So then we just don't apply. We know it's not within our capacity. And so then it's funds, and we do have needs in all of the different areas. But when we can't get that through council in that short of amount of time and stuff, that it's just hard. So I agree with what has been said. And so if there is going to be a phase 3, then right now what that looks like should be defined, and tribe should be able to take that, because until you get the structure and you get all that, we can't present it to council. And so it's just this very difficult cycle that we're going in. And then again, only 4 of the 9 tribes, you know, having, because I keep hearing the words of the best competitive application. Well, we're not being able to be competitive if we can't get it through our tribal governments to be able to do it. And then so that's just very difficult. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Sonia, get where you're going safe.
Thank you. I will. I'm going.
And is it okay if I say something?
Absolutely.
I agree with both TJ and Sonia. If we're informally putting in whether we support this notion or not, I agree with both of them. So I don't know what we have to do to like get that going, but if you need me to do something, please tell me. Thank you.
I saw that, Val. Go ahead.
Okay, well, you know, I'm just sitting here pondering. I'm, you know, not only do you know, we have to do the applications and get the bids and get the on one side, and then we have to have a 30-day prior notice to finance that we're going to have, or we want to put in an application. And so it worries me that we are not thinking about the most vulnerable populations that there are. And that we are not thinking about, you know, what this means to us as a community. Like this round that I was hoping for, you know, I can't get planning, I can't get anybody to move around, is just, you know, it's going to be impossible for me to do something in 30 days. And so, like others, we're going to have to wait until the next round. And I'm hoping that we will be able to get a set aside. Whereas, you know, as hard as we tried to work on the language in the IGAs, that is still difficult. And it's still taking us months to get an IGA signed and executed. And so, which, eats into the project deadline. So there are many things that haven't been considered. I do like the idea of maybe those that are the tribal liaisons, the heads, that those that do come together and that they do work with each other and work with that governor's liaison. That person is supposed to be there for us. And I really want to be able to, if this was true government to government, why don't we have a representative from the governor's office here? So, I really want to keep encouraging, having set aside funding to be able to reach those that are most vulnerable in the state, because this is something that I've always advocated for, is because we're the last on the list all the time. Or we're not on the list at all because we can't come to the table. So anyway, I hate to just dump and go, but I gotta go. That was another meeting notice I had. So I appreciate all of you listening.
Valerie, it's so good to see you. You look beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for speaking up.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I agree. You look great, and it's nice to have you here, even though you have to leave us for another meeting. Totally understand. But thank you for sharing, and it's really important that you're here and you spoke up.
Thank you, everybody.
In terms of next steps, I just wanted to confirm that I have reached out to the director and deputy director of Business Oregon to request a meeting, and that we include Shana Radford, who's the governor's tribal affairs director that Val mentioned in that conversation. So I will let folks know when that meeting occurs. And Amber would love to connect with you on the lessons learned you've been able to capture to lift up, in addition to kind of what we've heard today and what folks have shared at previous government to government clusters.
Thank you for reaching out to them, Alyssa, and also thank you for, it sounds like you have an open door that if any of us want to participate, you're going to be sending out information so that we can participate in that.
Absolutely.
So thank you for keeping the door open for us there.
Yeah, please. And I'll make sure you all have my email and cell as well. I'm always happy to set some separate time and discuss.
I know Sonia had brought up what the third round of funding would look like, but can we assume that it would follow the checklist from the first two rounds, just so we can continue working, and if we have to get a study conducted and do that kind of stuff, can we just assume that it's going to follow that kind of same checklist?
Yeah, the checklist did not change much from round 1 to round 2. I will say I'm hesitant to say, yeah, like nothing will change, because things have changed with Business Oregon, and timelines have moved and shifted, and so I think the best course of action, Jennifer, really, we want to engage, and we want to make sure that as we're getting information from Business Oregon, that we can help you with your application and have the most up-to-date information kind of going in that. But yeah, generally speaking, round 1 to round 2, both the application materials, supplemental materials, and most of the data that's collected did not shift. And thank you all for having us come and present. Alyssa, I'll follow up with you, get connected. And then, yeah, if there is an action that the chamber can support with, either from this group or from DELC or in coordination, love to be supportive of all of the work that everyone's doing, and also just kind of acknowledging, yeah, that, we just had like a lot of, I think, powerful intention shared in this room that can really transform, I think, what's happening in round 3 and subsequent rounds of continued funding.
Yeah, thank you everyone for sharing. There's a lot going on in the chat, in our discussion. We have I appreciate the next steps that Alyssa's already outlined and has in place. But are there any other questions, anything else on this topic? I mean, I'm sure we could talk about it for the rest of the time we have, but there are a couple other things to get to. But anything else for right now?
Well, my name is Wesley Edmo. I'm an MSW. I've been in the game quite a while in various tribal programs, and then Alfred's working for housing justice groups, and I just agree with the discussion about there needs to be true upfront consultation with tribes and respecting the fact that they need to be involved in this. When you're developing criteria, timelines. So, because it's all about getting things approved, and sometimes it's not that, it doesn't happen that fast in tribal government. So you have to be able to work with people and be respectful of that.
Yes, absolutely. And DELC does do formal tribal consultation, and the tribal consultation policy is going through the process of being implemented. That is something that has gone out to the tribes for their feedback, and Paulina has been working on implementing it or incorporating the feedback over the last couple months. But being that the childcare infrastructure funds are coming from another agency of this, like we're DELC, and then Business Oregon is a different agency. So we have our own policy, they have their own policy. It's they're the ones in charge of that funding. And so that's kind of where some of the difficulty is coming in, where the Child Care Infrastructure Fund, even though as the Department of Early Learning and Care, we are the experts in childcare, but we're not the experts in infrastructure and capital expenditure. It's like that's why Business Oregon was brought in, and that we have the contracts for the technical assistance to support providers, childcare providers and businesses in applying for those funds. Alyssa, Paulina, do you have anything to add?
Appreciate the conversation, and just want to reinforce the commitment to sharing what we learned with Business Oregon, and appreciated, TJ, your suggestion of bringing Business Oregon to this space. If that's something folks are interested in, we can definitely make that request.
And I just want to add, I appreciate hearing from everybody about how to improve this process, because it is not a perfect process. So I look forward to collaborating with you all to improve tribal access to tribal early learning and childcare, so that people have more equitable access for their community. So we're open to that, and I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because it is something that needed to happen, and we're going to try very hard to be responsive.
Well, I really appreciate everyone's comments and thoughts. Given that we're over time on our schedule, I just wanted to give a little bit of time, maybe a couple, like 2-3 minutes for some quick updates, just general legislative updates. That could be either Alyssa or Kathy, whoever wants to share on this one, and I can pull up my slide deck here, just 2 seconds. So you should be able to see my screen now.
Kathy, I'll let you take it away.
All right, thank you. Hey, everybody. Kathy Way here at Delk's Interim Government Affairs Manager. So thank you so much again for having me as a part of your meeting, and for Dana for allowing me to give just a really quick update on some of the things that are happening currently in session. So happy to report that we are halfway through the legislative session, which is really exciting. And today is actually a major deadline where bills that have been originally introduced in the beginning of session, they must have had a public hearing and a work session and also be voted out of committee by today's date. So if bills don't have either of those, then they are essentially not moving forward. Otherwise, they're also called dead. That's sort of like legislative talk for, again, bills not moving forward through the session. So the exciting thing that I do want to share is that all of the priority bills that you see here that Delk has advocated for are moving forward, which of course includes House Bill 2815, the Tribal Early Learning Plan and Fund. So the bill received a public hearing. It also passed out of work session a couple of months ago, and that bill is now currently sitting in the Ways and Means Committee, which is the committee that oversees the state's budget. And House Bill 2811 is the Dolly Parton Imagination Library of Oregon. That bill also received a public hearing and a work session, is also in the Ways and Means / Budget Committee. And just as a refresher, that bill is basically, it was legislation that already previously passed in 2023, and it's just codifying the Dolly Parton Imagination Library of Oregon program in statute. So it's a free program. That gives free books to children across our state, and we're sort of a proud supporter of that work happening. And then House Bill 2814 is just our technical fix bill that will allow more flexibility for our childcare providers across all of our different licensing types. So that bill does not have a budget impact associated with it. So the bill 2814, it passed through the House chamber last week, and we're waiting for the bill to go through the Senate side to receive a public hearing. So, so again, just to recap, the good news is all of these bills are alive and well, and I know that right now we're just waiting for the next step to happen in the Ways and Means Committee, and the Ways and Means Committee right now is going through their process of listening to different community, their members. They're going around and doing what's called a road show. So so all of the committee members in Ways and Means are doing the road show in different sites across Oregon, listening to community members about different legislative priorities, and then we hopefully sometime in it's already March, so hopefully in mid-April or so, or hopefully in late April, early May, they'll start hearing bills on policy committees. They'll start hearing bills with fiscals attached to them. Sorry, it's been a very long week. So stay tuned. We don't know yet when House Bill 2815 in particular will get heard in the Ways and Means Education Subcommittee, but we will definitely be in touch with folks. I did hear back from Co-Chair Ruiz's office that he is not planning on having presentations like what we did in the early education committee. So for Ways and Means, it's just a matter of just voting on the bill. There isn't going to be
additional time needed necessarily to do a public hearing. But he did say that if TAC is interested in doing a presentation, they would be open to it. Just sort of by normal process wise, folks can still submit testimony, so they still welcome that when the bill is up, but they're not expecting TAC and folks to do like a formal testimony that we had a couple of months ago. So just wanted to share that update.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Is there any questions for Kathy? One thing you said is it's been a long week, and yes, it has. It's only Wednesday. Scary thought, but glad that our bill is moving forward. I'm glad that we don't have to say 2815-1 anymore. We can just say 2815 since the amendment was adopted unanimously. And so we'll just keep you posted as soon as we know more. So thank you, Kathy. Again, thanks for being here. And I'll go ahead and let's see. I guess we can skip this since we don't really covered most of it. And now that we have 16 minutes, I think we can do it. But we wanted to be very intentional in getting the grants ready for next biennium. We are very aware of the barrier that grants between state and tribes are in getting state funds out to tribes, just because of the time that it can take, the language that's in there. And so the very beginning of this process is at the state level is drafting the statement of work, or the SOW, as it might be called. It is one of the exhibits that's in the grant agreement. So generally where the language needs to be adjusted, like where the legal department or tribal attorneys will review and have issues, are in those other areas. But the statement of work is basically the heart of the agreement. It's where it directs the future work that is going to be done by the tribe as a result of entering into this agreement with us. But the thing is unlike other grants, this is an intergovernmental grant agreement between two government entities, tribe and state. So your feedback and input at this point, even though it's early in the process, is important. And so we shared out the draft statement of work after the last Tribal Advisory Committee meeting. So you should all have it in email, and I will put it up on the screen as well so that we can go through it together. But because these will be 4-year agreements, we tried to keep the language around project activities and deliverables flexible, but still applicable, because it will span from July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2029. Granted, in the middle, and no pun intended, the grants will need to be amended around July, the end of June, beginning of July of 2027 to add additional dollars, because we only have funds appropriated every 2 years. So there will be one amendment in the middle, but it's not going to be an entirely new agreement. So our understanding was that will be quicker than an entirely new agreement from previous TAC meetings. So that's kind of the best that we're able to do. And so that's what we're going to do. Before I pull up the draft and we start going through it, are there any questions?
Dana, I'm going to have to leave you because there's somewhere else that I have to be. So are you able to send me whatever you're going to say in the next 12 minutes via email, and we work back and forth via email?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
Um,
sorry.
This totally fine. I will email the questions or the framework of what we'll be going over here in a moment so that you have it for later. Especially for anyone else who's had to leave early, they'll also receive it.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry that I got to leave you.
No worries at all, Julie. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Okay. Any other questions?
Dana, knowing we have 11 minutes and this is a 7-page document, can you maybe just focus in on the couple areas for feedback, and then we can always carve out additional maybe drop-in time to dig in before the next TAC?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So the 3 major areas are the deliverables, reporting requirements, and budget. So that's what I'm going to jump to first. The project activities, this first section just talks about the objectives and the strategies of the Tribal Early Learning Plan and Fund, and that's pulled straight out of what's in the House bill. And so if anything changes in that, then these would change too. But the area where tax feedback would be helpful is in this table right here. It should be pretty similar to what the Tribal Advisory Committee does, plus the things that we've added in as a result of creating the bill that we now have. So for instance, the Oregon Tribal Early Learning Alliance, instead of the Tribal Advisory Committee, one of the areas is having 2 tribal representatives. So that part is the same, being legislative response role, like if there's some kind of a update that needs to be done or more funding that needs advocated for, something like that, that tribes would perform that response role, that those who are appointed to serve on OTELA would participate in like subcommittees or work groups that might come out of this work, that they'd be responsible to advise DELC on developing and implementing the Tribal Early Learning Plan and Fund. And I'll just scroll down a little bit. This section here, more advising DELC, this is pulled also out of the language that's in the bill. So it's advising anything related to early learning and care and adopting rules necessary for operating the advisory committee, as well as for the Tribal Early Learning Plan and Fund, administering the grant program, to engage in outreach with the community, participate in like DELC surveys, and then to just implement the strategies and objectives of the plan. So that's all of the many areas where you could invest in early learning and care. So that part is basically spend the money. Any concerns about what this table is asking of tribes, and does it sound complete? Is it too much? And I can also phrase this in writing to consider later if you'd prefer to have some time to process.
Dana, sorry. We don't have quorum anymore, so just letting you know.
Calling that out. Yeah. Yeah, we can still finish up since we only have a few minutes left, and gather any feedback. We don't have anything to vote on. So. All right. Well, I'll touch on, oh, TJ, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, as a I guess as a member / non-member of the TAC, officially, unofficially, for the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, I would honestly, I mean, if you haven't already had conversations with, Alyssa and Dana, you were both at Government to Government today with Carissa Dwyer and Julie Johnson and her team. I would highly suggest you at least have a conversation with her, whether it's via email or, on how they're doing some of the plans that they have and the reporting that they have, because I know the tribes for years, as far as in the prevention side of it anyway, there have been folks who have talked and talked and talked about having one simplified plan and simple, simple, not simple, but simpler, reporting mechanisms, and not having to jump from one to the other and but kind of, having everything all in one spot. So, that's come to fruition in the last year or so. So I would really, again, I think they did a lot of legwork in finding out what worked best for tribes. So again, it might be just worth the conversation to just say, hey, we heard you guys that did this, and with your guys, like our behavioral health plan is one that comes to mind, where we have a bunch of different plans essentially, or grants under one plan, and it's not, it's instead of having to go from one to the next to the next to the next. Again, just looking at this briefly, everything looks good, but for me, I think in my mind, the simpler, the easier it is for tribes. Not to say that we don't understand or comprehend everything, so to speak, but it just, if you guys know as well as a lot of folks do that work in this business, that it's fast paced, and it's everything's go go go. And if hopefully somebody at some point would have the opportunity to look at all this and make sure everything's fine and dandy, and the people who are supposed to be doing those things, they're doing them. But at the same time, I think the simpler the better. Not to say that it's easier, it's just better for all the 9 tribes. So, or at least for Warm Springs, I guess I could speak on our behalf, but I don't like to speak for others, but I would think that if tribes in the prevention realm where I came from would think that it would make sense, then I wouldn't see why it wouldn't make sense in other areas. So again, that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. See, this is why we ask that question. I've not heard of that, the behavioral health plan. And so, yeah, we can definitely reach out, and I appreciate that input. So just for clarification, this grant would only be for the one tribal early learning plan and fund. And so that's the only kind of directives and reporting that's in here. It sounds like maybe what they're doing at OHA might be more comprehensive. So we can definitely talk to them and see what we can learn and look to doing. Definitely the simpler, the better. We are in agreement there, and we don't want to make you do a ton of reporting. I can say that we have been successful in making some of the other reporting a little bit simpler. So for instance, the birth to 5 literacy, they did monthly reporting for everyone else, but we were able to get it down to quarterly for tribes specifically. And that was actually the next section that I was going to touch on. And essentially it's 2 reports, an annual update, and an initial report that says like, this is what the project is going to be, and then an update once every year. And so it's meant to be more straightforward and easier for tribes to do. And then apart from that, there's the fiscal side of the reports. There's the expenditure reports and claims, which this is down here on this page. But the expenditure reports and claims, since those are a little bit different, we still try to make them more amenable. So for instance, let's say in the first quarter of the year, for January, you made a claim, February, you made a claim, and March, you made a claim. That's fine. And you only need to do 1 expenditure report for the entire quarter, rather than an expenditure report with each claim that you do. So even in that way, we've tried to make it so you're not having to do so much reporting to Delk. We're basically at time. So I'll compile the questions about this section and the prior section and the budget section with the other meeting materials and get those sent back out in a recap email. Ideally tomorrow, but I'm going to be traveling with Northwest Native Chamber, or well, Northwest Native Chamber and I are both going to visit Umatilla, so I might not be able to do it tomorrow. So potentially Friday. So if you don't see my email tomorrow, that will be why. But for now, are there any closing thoughts? Anything lingering? Well, wonderful. Thanks again, everyone, for being here. Have a good rest of your Wednesday in this long week that's only halfway over. And I look forward to seeing you all next month in May. But I'll be around, so feel free to reach out to me if you need anything between then and now. And I'll definitely touch base with you if anything comes up.
Thanks, Dana.